Welcome back to another video where we're attempting to build this Mark III chassis AK Cobra. Thanks for joining me. Before we get started, please like and subscribe this video. It's free, takes you a second, do it right now. It doesn't mean anything to you, but could help me out a ton. So appreciate it, thank you very much. I think only about 20% of viewers are currently subscribed, so you know who you are. Anyway, we're going to get cracking on this video with installing the roll bar hoops and also the steering column. Well, I need to build myself up to the steering column, so we're going to get started with the roll bar hoops. Let's go. Alright, so it's a little bit cramped in here, but I'll set you up, try and do a bit of a time lapse. First of all, you can tell which mountings are which because the top of these mountings are kind of slanted to fit in with the curve of the body there. Second thing to note, that even though the holes that these go into are threaded through the chassis, I've been informed that you still need to put a nylock on the other side underneath. So, you know, do as you will. I will always do that, just so I don't get any kind of refusal from the IVA guy. So even though these aren't like a safety thing and it's more ornamental, I guess they still need to see everything mounted securely. So we're going to go ahead and put these in. So first of all, we put these in quite loosely because we need to make a further marking so we can drill through and put in the mounts for the harness up here, and it means drilling a hole up through here, but of course we don't know where to drill it at the moment until we've got some kind of line. So let me show you what I do. Alright, so we're just going to mount these. Now you need 40mm M8 bolts to go all the way through if you plan on putting the nylocks on the other end. Next, I'm not going to be doing them all down tight. Right, where are the holes for this? So there's only 3 holes for this one. So I'm not going to do them all down tight because, you know, you're going to be doing carpeting and all sorts down here. So I'm only just going to do a couple of slightly tighter ones to make sure they're in the right position for the roll hoops, etc. So and also I've been told that you should not fit carpet underneath these roll hoops because the IVA man won't like that. Again, you know, they are just sort of ornamental and not a safety feature, so I don't know how much, you know, it really matters, but I'm certainly not in a position to argue with anyone, so I will not be putting carpet underneath, but rather I'll be cutting round and then laying the carpet. Alright, so we got the first one in moderately firmly, so I know it's going to end up being in that position. So now what I'm going to do is just mark a line either side, because what we're going to do now is undo it all, and I'm going to zap just a 1mm hole straight out, so I know exactly where I then need to drill up to open up a hole for the harness mount. So I'll show you that. All right then, so with the apparatus out of the way, we can now put a hole straight in the middle here. There you go. So now, let's go around. So now, whereabouts did it come out? Just here, right. So now what we can do is remount the harness bar, and then we're going to drill up through this top of the body here and gradually open out a hole so that we can get a harness mount into the thread. So I'll show you that. Alright, so I'm about to go around and open up the holes that will then poke up and allow this bolt to go through the hole and up into the thread of this harness support here. Just a couple of things to note. You obviously will be cutting this thread down. However, don't cut it too much because IVA do want to see a couple of threads above this harness mount. However, don't go too long, because when you're wrenching and tightening up your harness bolt, when it comes back from paint, you don't want the thread to put any pressure on the paint, else it might pop and crack. So be careful with that. It's also quite likely you need to do a couple of various thickness washers so that when you finish tightening this bolt, it ends up being in the right orientation to take the harness clip or whatever you're using. So I think for me, I need to have it like this so it can be hooked on. Obviously, if it is like this, that's going to restrict space, etc. So I need it like this. And also, if it is like this and you clicked it on the wrong side, any force could end up undoing the bolt, as it were. So I need it tight in this position, so it finishes like this with enough thread showing and not enough to poke up through the paint.
Make 'em believe you know where you're going. Doesn't matter when you're with me. I like you for you.
Alright, so I've just cut this bolt down because the length of it meant I was impacting against the this back here, and I couldn't get a turn in or even catch the thread. So I just took the edge off. I'm probably going to have to shorten it a little bit more, but the idea is now I want to do this up to get an idea of the length that I need, but also to mark the circle of this shoulder here, because it will actually go up into here. You don't just cut the width of the thread, you're cutting the width of the shoulder there. Of course, you've got to get a couple of washers on here as well, as you know, just so you can get it to finish in the right orientation. But all I want to do at the moment is just to get this up in here. And of course, you need to double check that you can definitely get these in before you send it to the paint shop and everything's all fine, because otherwise you're going to have a hell of a time trying to open it up once it's got paint on, etc. Right, so that's I can feel that's hit my body now. I'm not going to push it any further, otherwise it will crack this. It's just dead easy just to pop. But now I can mark properly how big the shoulder is, where I need to open it up as nicely as I can. You won't really ever look under here. By the time you've got maybe a leather or carpet on here, and also you've got the seat on up here as well, you're never going to be looking up here. But you know, I like to do as neat a job as I can. A couple of mil room. Make sure in this case you've got the mounting plate fairly tight, because if it's not tight and you end up doing it up tight when you get it back from the paint shop or whatever, and it moves a couple of mil either way, then this is going to obviously impact where the hole is, and you'll be in a whole world of hurt. So I've made sure that this is now tight behind here. This is definitely going to be the final resting place, and we'll all be set. So let me just mark that up and make it a bit neater. So there you go, that's all there is to it. Right, I just need to get a thinner bit of washer in there, just so that this finishes in this orientation. So when I do it up tight and really lean on it, it goes to there, and that's not good enough. If I was to hook something on there, it could eventually loosen and swivel round, and no one's going to be liking that. Not only will it be rattly, it's not right. So I want it finished tight, really about there. So that when it's pulling forward, it's always going to want to try and turn and tighten slightly to that kind of position. Anyway, I'll take you around to the back, and hopefully, let's get you off that. You can see in here, perhaps, so you can see the thread in there, and it's not near the top. Now you can see where I did hit the top when it was longer, but now we can see loads of thread, and no matter how tight I do it, it's not going to impact the top of that body. So all happy with that, and now I just need to do the other side. All right, onto the roll hoops here. Right, so the idea is we're trying to put them in and socket them home into their fittings without having to take too much of this bodywork off, or at least take the bodywork off in the right direction. So I kind of get them in here and see if they're close to going into any of the sockets. That's quite a way off. And the height that you need to get is about 10.5 to 11 inches from the top of the body here to the top of the roll hoop. So they're not going in at all. So what I'm going to do is just mark with a Sharpie the edges that I want to just take a little bit off. This one looks quite good, until I can get them into their sockets and drop them down a bit further. Alright, so I'm not having a great time here. Slightly better on the other side, that's a little bit lower down. But the fact is, the sockets that this left-hand one going into are not parallel, straight up and down. You can see this socket just here is just bent off at a slight angle, and that's obviously causing it to wedge and not drop down far enough. And of course, if the others are even just slightly out or the other way, then it's really going to cause a problem. And you can't really tell on the camera that this one is also just slightly off, but because it's not so bad, it does allow me to wedge it down a little bit further. Anyway, so now I'm in the process of trying to get it back out and seeing what I can do about that. Whether I need to go back to AK and get a new roll bar mounting made up that is straight, because this is causing me quite an issue, and it is pretty wedged. And of course, there's not a lot to rest on here to try and wangle it back out again, because this is quite a thin top of the body here, and you want to be careful not to crack it, etc. So I'll just carry on. So you can see by my Sharpie markings, that's as far down the sockets as I was going. So to get it out, which was a full-on coat off job, a bit sweaty, I loosened all of these fittings, which I don't mind if that's the answer. You know, if I need to socket it home while it's loose to its correct height and then do these up, then that's absolutely fine. But you know, I'm sure that the fact that this is not straight is the real issue, and no matter how loose it is, you know, unless I could turn it so that it became straight, and that's going to affect obviously everything else, all my other holes. That's not really the answer. So now that it is loose, I'm just going to just make sure all these holes are opened up enough. Not even though I'm pretty sure that it wasn't impacting the body at all. I just gave it another couple of mil round just to see if we can get this in, and I'll give it a bit of WD-40 as well. All right then, so that was the answer. I just undid the bracketry inside the boot to allow that that socket to sort of get into an upright position. Allowed me to drop the roll hoop down fairly easily, just a bit of banging on the top, and now it's at the right height, so that's all good. And then so before I did it up, it did move my hole along, so I just needed to double check whether I needed to make that hole a little bit longer, wider, or see what happens when I did the bracketry back up again. And indeed it moved everything back into its correct place. Whew, so I'm all done there. I'm pretty happy with that. So I just need to do the other side, which isn't quite as jammed. Hopefully just by undoing the bolts just a little bit will allow me to drop that roll hoop down, then I can do them back up again. So I'm pretty chuffed with that. So I just need to remember that when it comes to fitting. I am just going to take a smidge more bodywork off of this side. Worst thing that you can do is to start impacting this once it's all painted. It'll send a crack and a spider web up. So now that it's in its proper position, I can just open it up slightly, not too much, because then we need to fit the escutcheons on, which is another fun job, and make sure we've got enough meat on there to still get a screw in for the escutcheons. So let's have a go at that. All right, escutcheon time, always fun. These have been cut with slightly different inner diameters or sizes. So this top one takes a very circular shape, because the roll hoop is just dropping straight down. This one is perhaps at more of an angle, so this has a slightly more oval shape that needs to be going like this. I don't think these require any bending really. You might want to put a very slight bend in, but the fact is, it's pretty flat, and probably when you do it up, well, they are pretty hard. Maybe I'm just going to do a couple of mil bend in that just to stop it rocking. not that I think you'd notice. And then this one, this hasn't got quite such an oval shape. And the difficulty with this one is it sort of requires, I think, bending almost on 2 axes. It's kind of a bit of an angle, this valley here. So I've shown how to bend that as best as I can on a previous video, so do watch that. I've got a little press, and I put in something like a 20 or 22 millimeter socket across here and press down, and it makes a nice bend, and then I just kind of jimmy it around a bit just to give it a bit more of a bend one way. So you can watch that. So anyway, I'm gonna just what I do now, a lot of people just screw these straight in. They are they have got, I think, no, they haven't got countersinks. I thought they had on previous ones, so we'll just check that out. I might want to countersink those. I just want to check my screws out, but I don't screw into the body. I don't want to inflict any more cracking or anything. I drill straight through, and then I use a flat nut to screw into on the other side, and it gives you just a little bit more freedom, I think, in case you need to move a hole slightly, just to move it along if it's rubbing up against and squeaking against a roll hoop. So that's what I'm going to try and do now. So I'm going to put the roll hoop back on, mark the holes, and see where we are. And to show you the finished kind of look we're going for, I like to line up my holes like this. So I've made sure there's a good millimetre around the roll hoop here, so it doesn't touch. Otherwise, I think you might get a little bit of squeaking when there's some flexing. And that's generally what you're kind of aiming for. Now, the benefit of using the flat washers I'm going to do rather than screwing into the bodywork is if you're a touch close, like I am here to the body, then it doesn't matter, because it's obviously going to screw into the flat nut on the other side and not trying to screw into the bodywork. So I need to just countersink all these, and this is one side good to go. And there we all are, all done on the passenger side as well. I obviously didn't sock it all the way down. You can see a line there, how far down it does go, but for the sake of fitting escutcheons, didn't need to do that. I do recommend marking up your escutcheons so you know what goes where. So I've got passenger side, front, rear, all the rest of it, so I know where everything goes. All right, steering column time. Okay, onto the steering column. Hopefully this bit goes smoothly. So we've got to get from the end of the steering column that comes out of the power steering rack there, using AK's extension here. It's got a fat end and a thin end. You've got to have the thin end going past these 2 water pipes, which we've obviously got yet to finish up to the heater. Anyway, it just skims past those. And then we've got our donor steering column from BMW E34. This is the airbag one, which you can now use, and I've got the correct boss for that. And then you could make this yourself, although fairly difficult, so I buy this little bush from AK, and that pretties everything up. So what we're going to do first of all is just basically put the column in with the extension and aim for this hole, and hopefully it'll go through there, and then we'll attempt to mount the steering column on the inside, and after that we'll try and fit the bush. All right, we'll do this first bit here then. First of all, the extension. Remember to take out the it's called a lock-in bolt, because that goes through the flat or the little groove down there. I'm going to put this section in as well. So need to put that in so that the flat is where the bolt will end up going, straight through there. Push it through, here we go. So that's that. We'll do that up in a sec. And then, right, trying to feed this through. So I was going to go in there and then back down to the power steering. Hopefully it'll fit on. I have had to open this up previously, just with a wider screwdriver, just so that it actually slotted on. I guess there might be a bit of powder coat in the way, etc. Yeah, that just needs lining up slightly. So the idea is that I'm going to get it in there and then put the steering column in the actual driver's side and just make sure everything lines up. And then what we'll be doing is taking it back apart and fitting this bush and marking up some holes to fit the bush. Alright, so you can see that I've got the end in there. It didn't need opening up, I just needed to get it straight on. So I am going to make sure, I usually go down there and rotate this so I can look through the gap and make sure that I am actually in line with a little indent, so then I can put the bolts through. The reason that I've put it in with this bit of steering column is so I don't have to mess around supporting this end. It's sort of supporting itself, and that's all fine. And obviously when I fit the bush, etc., I can just pull out this end. So now we're going to go round and we're going to attempt to hang the rest of this steering column. So I'll set you up. Right, let's go for this then. It's going to be a bit awkward with you guys in the way. All we want to do is just basically hang it. We'll mess about with washers and stuff in a sec. Because we might have to move up, down, left, right. Make sure that's all sort of straight. Okay, and then we need to get a bolt into the back support as well. All right, so this is what we're kind of aiming for. Now, I'm not sure if we're aiming for this to be as far forward or as far back as possible. I think forward, because I think by the time we got the dash on and the stalks, I think the gap is not that big, so I think you need it far forward. So you can slide it backwards and forwards on this fitting there. And then of course we've got the fittings there. Now, I'm not a big fan of these kind of washers here, because it can slide out of the washers. Basically, the only thing that's stopping your steering column from coming out is this back fixing. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be swapping those slidey washers out and just replacing them with normal washers all clamped in tight, so that there can be no chance of it. Anyway, what we're aiming for is you've got to be parallel here. So by the time the steering wheel goes on, it needs to be straight and you know, parallel with your body. So so that's what we got. So there's ample movement to be able to do that. Next thing I'm going for is make sure I can rotate the steering column here, and that the knuckle doesn't hit the wishbone. I have had it before, I think, just with the nut, and I've just taken an edge off the nut there. But in this instance, we are all good. We're missing everything. We've got space for the water pipes to come out. They'll be heading downwards when we get to that bit. And then we're all set here. So we have a little bit of flexibility, because obviously at the end of the steering column is a rubber kind of joining bush. So we've got a little bit of movement here. So basically, I'm just going to slide out this this steering column, put the bush in, and we can mark up the holes for that through the stainless steel there. Rightio, so I'm just going to slide this out now. Let that hang there. We can just slide this out, and then we have to put on this this bush. So we need to slide this on. This is pretty tough. I think previously I've kind of wedged it on this end and then just tapped it on. So it's on there, and then I'm just going to go and tap it on. Alright, so that's on, and then now this hole here has sometimes been too small. Which way does this need to go? It needs to go that way. Oh, it does. Does it fit? It's just catching on that rear bit of collar there, which is terrific. So we are going to just open up that hole slightly, I think, is the best bet. Or maybe I'll just take down just a smidge off of here, because unfortunately, if we open up this hole, you need that shoulder in there to retain this this bush. Otherwise, the bush will just slide out. So I don't really want to open that hole up. So we'll probably just try and take this down a smidge. All right, so we just took that down. It is barely the thickness of paint really, and managed to get that on fine. Just need to make sure this bush is cut at an angle, so you need to make sure that it's set correctly and not sticking out like that is. So you need to make sure it's all flush in there. So we can go ahead and put that in there. Normally I'm quite lucky at finding the end of the, there we go. So I've got the end of the steering column there, and put this bit on. Okay, right, so that's all nice and flush. So I guess we want it to be in the middle of the hole. So I'm just going to sort of feel around to get it into the middle, mark a couple of holes up, and then we'll get drilling. All right, there we go. So we're all having a fabulous time here. This is all good. This is all good. Not sure what to do with these lock bolts. Put red Loctite on there. Do I need to put them on first with a lock-in washer, spring washer, or something? Maybe that and red Loctite. Certainly don't want this backing out and anything coming undone. And the same goes to the bottom one as well. So that was all fine. Of course, the real fun is yet to come. You thought that lot was difficult. It's nothing compared to the two little nuts that you need to get on here. So you need to get a nut on the bottom one. Obviously that's easy. And you need to get a nut on the one on the top there that you can just see. Various ways of doing this. I tend to get a bit of blue tack on the end of my finger, stick the washer on, and head in that direction. Same thing with the nut. Try and head in that direction and get a helper to slowly turn the bolt so that the nut engages, and then I can bring my finger and the blue tack back, and then you can obviously just get a thin spanner in there to hold it while your colleague does it up on the other end. So we're going to do that, but obviously that's a bit tight and I can't really video it. All right, so we're all done up there. Obviously it's a lot easier to take the steering column back out, and then you're only left with a short bit to be able to feel around and also get a tool in to do that top bolt up and the bottom bolt for that matter. So we're all good. Obviously your adjustment here by padding this out with spacers that way or that way can bring the nose of the steering column you know, this way or that way to make sure your steering wheel is straight and parallel with the dash and everything else. So that's all fine. So I'm essentially done there. All I'm going to do is get the correct size bolt for that back section, because it's a little bit long. For me, I am having it hard up against this bracket here, so that's all fine. I think that's just a little bit long, and obviously need to get a washer and nylock on the back there, so that's good. And then I'm going to pack out these fixings with some washers, and I think I will take out those slidey washers. There is still a slot in the actual steering column bracket, but I would feel better being able to clamp the bolt through a load of washers and doing it all up tight, just as another two firm fixings there, and not just rely on the one on the back to stop it all moving around. So that is it done. And there we go with the steering boss on it. Good idea to take the steering boss off, because you will scratch it up. Well, the roll hoops certainly took it out of me today. So along with the steering column, I think we're going to call it at the end of the video. We've still got quite a lot to do. We've still got to fit the fuel filler hose and filler cap, and I'm waiting for my heater box to be made up before I can cut a big hole to insert that. So whilst we're waiting for that, I don't think there's any harm in starting the wiring. I certainly don't want to install the exhaust yet, because once the headers are in, I don't want to be taking them out again, and they will certainly hinder my access down to the starter motor. So I think we'll do the wiring next. I'll see you again.